Welcome back, everyone. It's time for episode 35 of the Horns Up Podcast, your weekly catch-up on all things metal. I am your host, Dan Kaplan, coming to you as always from New York. With me from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, the battle is over. He is lost to apathy. My good friend, Corey Butterworth. Corey, how's it going?
It's that time of the year, Dan, where I just don't give a shit anymore. Also,
already?
Well,
we're only 2 weeks into 2015. You already don't give a shit?
I hate this year. It's stupid. I'm not going to Wacken.
What? Well, of course.
Duh.
Are you so? Can I take that to mean that any year you don't go to Wacken, which I have to assume is going to be the majority from here on out, any year you don't go to Wacken from here on out is just going to be a failure?
I see myself going to fewer than 10 Wackens in my life, so I can see myself dying at the ripe age of about 8. Because no other years are valid. No, it's good. It's actually been probably the coldest it's been here in some time, and I mean multiple years. We'll get into this more later, but I got back from the Dark Tranquillity concert at the early hour of define early hour of about 2 a.m. It was -16. Oof. I woke up at 4 to go to Boston because I did that same day, and it was -18. So it's been some cold weather, but grim and frostbitten's the way to go. Woo.
Yeah. We've been feeling that down here too. It's I don't think we've had it quite so cold as you have, but I can't remember if I talked about this. Did I talk about this last week? At one point, I was walking home from the subway. I was turning onto my block to head up to my apartment, and at one point I turned the corner, and the wind was so strong it physically pushed me backward.
Yeah.
Now, we lived in Syracuse for 4 years. We've had snow. We've had wind before. I have never had that happen to me. I've never been physically taken aback by wind the way I was there. This is just crazy. I mean, it's warmed up a little bit lately, but still.
Right. I mean, it's honestly cities, because the same thing happens to me when I go down to Boston, the Back Bay area. It's just those wind tunnels, man, between those buildings. They just funnel right down, and they'll knock you backwards. But whatever. I
mean, we're coastal. We're coastal. I mean, you that says all you need.
Anywho.
Yep, I'm with you there. Before we get going like Jeff Walker at Maryland Death Fest talking about the weather all the time.
Jesus.
Let's move into our headlines for the week. And this one, we'll start off with one that's not really a headline per se, but came across our radar screen today, and I thought it was worth talking about. It was a piece by Joe Schaefer over at Invisible Oranges, or Joseph Schaefer, I don't know if he abbreviates or not, called "In Attempted Defense of the Mosh Pit." No, it was an op-ed sort of stemming from the incident we saw last week at the cattle decapitation show in California, where 2 fans were stabbed, which primarily stemmed from an incident in the show's mosh pit. Just kind of went into why Joe is a fan of mosh pits, and why they are sort of acceptable at this kind of show, and we shouldn't blame the mosh pits, et cetera, et cetera. And this has kind of become a bit of a hot topic lately. People, I think it was Chris Fenn from Slipknot said, he argued that mosh pits were a form of bullying. I don't know if I agree with that, but
I don't.
What do you think of pits at shows? What do you have to say about that?
I think they're fine. And I've done the mosh pitting thing. It's something that's kind of eased off with time, maybe because the number of shows I'm going to, it would just be too much of a toll on my body, maybe because I'm getting older, who knows, it could be anything. Or maybe it's the sheer fact that most of the shows I go to, I make a commitment to, and I want to actually see the bands play. Who knows what it is. But the fact of the matter is, moshing is something that comes with shows. I don't see it as a form of bullying. Every mosh pit that I've ever been involved with is actually a form of camaraderie there. You get knocked down, people help you up, they pat you on the back, they give you a high five, and you jump right back in. Every mosh I've ever, as for aggressive as they are, and as much as just bodies throwing themselves against other bodies, they're fun. And there's a certain level of, I don't know if it's a agreement or a certain level of respect for one another there, that it's never been a negative thing for me. Yes, it can beat you up, but look at what you're doing. That being said, as far as I'm concerned, it's part of the territory. If you want to go to a show to watch a band, I mean, either way, your best opportunity to see that band is probably not going to be in the middle of a crowd surrounded by people. I tend to now maybe step back a little bit, try to get a better vantage point, that kind of thing. I don't know. I don't think they're bad things. I think there are idiots in every crowd, and if people are going to be violent in mosh pits, they'd also probably be violent anywhere else. I think it's just the reality of the situation, and it's just as far as I'm concerned, part of metal shows. I don't think really. Yeah. Again, a couple bad eggs can ruin everything, but I don't think it's something to be perceived so negatively.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of in the same boat. I mean, you know me. Like, I personally don't like mosh pits. I don't mosh. I'm like Danny Glover at these metal shows. I'm too old for that shit. But at the same time, like, you have to accept, like, they are part of the scene. People are going to get rowdy, and people are going to jump around and shove each other. And like, if you're like me, if you don't like being shoved around or getting the occasional face full of hair, like I did at Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats,
right?
Then either don't stand near it, or if you have to stand near it, if you really want to get up close to the stage and take your pictures to Instagram or film the entire set like a fucking moron,
like an idiot, yeah.
Then just suck it up and deal with the mosh pit. I mean, it's you know what, like it's not my thing, but I'm not going to. I don't think it's something that needs to be defended. I think it just is. It's there, like right. You said, when a stabbing happens, you can't indict every person in every mosh pit at every metal show in the country. Like, it's just one asshole.
Right.
So
violence takes place in a school. You're not going to close down all those schools. Everything is situational. There's bad people in bad situations that cause harm to people. It's just the way it is. It's metal is aggressive. It's a fast-paced, energy-inducing genre of music. I'm sure you're like me, you listen to it when you're running or going to the gym or something. I mean, you're not listening to Bach while you do this stuff. You do it because it gives you a little bit of adrenaline, right? You have to expect there to be some movement at these shows. It's just, I don't know. You have to expect there to be some level of movement, some level of just energy. Like, really. It's just the way it's put forth. It's the way the crowd chooses to exert it. And I don't know. Every experience I've had with it has been a good one. Obviously, I can't speak for everybody, but I think just by the diversity of the shows I've been to, it's more or less, it's mostly an enjoyable thing for metal fans. I really do. I don't see the bullying. I don't see any of that, but maybe it's just me. Who knows?
So anyway, interesting development on that front. I mean, like I said, I don't mind mosh pits. I don't think they're something that needs to be defended. It's not my bag, but mosh away, kids, mosh away.
Knock yourself out. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, I want to get into something that I think I brought this to your attention, but then I proceeded to do nothing with it. So I'm going to introduce it and then let you take the lead. Talking about a bit of a dispute going on between a band called Numbers from Seattle and their record label, Sumerian Records, and specifically record label head Ash Avildsen. Now, this stems from Numbers won a Battle of the Bands that Sumerian set up with the prize for the winners was billed as a record contract on Sumerian. Numbers won, they got their record contract, but now all of a sudden they're none too pleased with it. Right. Corey, give me the details here. What do we got going on here?
Sure. So I actually did go through and I watched. There was an interview with the frontman of Numbers, and I watched it, and they were just asking about his experience with it. The first several minutes, he was just talking about the process, how there were like regional competitions. And again, I think Battle of the Bands are generally kind of stupid. I don't think the music industry is something to fuck around with in the sense that you pit local bands against each other.
Why should people compete?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard enough to make it out there.
Right, exactly. Let's compete to see who can appease this, this label more. I've never bought into that. Anyway, so they had these regional competitions, and the winners that would advance would go to the finals. The finals were in Los Angeles, where Sumerian Records is. So this band, they won the regional, and they got to drive to Los Angeles from Seattle. Hell of a way. They get there, there's probably 30, 35 bands. Sumerian didn't pick one winner. They said, we were impressed, or we're going to pick four. They didn't really talk to any of the bands in depth or anything like that, but they're like, we're going to, here are the four bands that won, blah, 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 blah. numbers wins. So they get pumped, they go home, they can't tell anybody per the terms of whatever contract they get until they actually sign the contract. So Sumerian keeps them sitting, and this is all per their take. This is not necessarily factual. This is just based on, how I've heard it told. They eventually get the contract 3 weeks later, or so, and in short, the contract would have offered them 13% to share for the band, which, more than zero, which is what they're currently at. Sure, I understand that.
Right.
But also, it pretty much stripped them of all writing freedom, all really member freedom. Like, if the label didn't think somebody was, going in the right direction with the band, they could literally kick people out of the band for the band. It more or less stripped them of all their, or the way he described it, stripped them of all their, writing freedom, where they could write what they wanted, but the second the label didn't hear what they wanted, they'd make them redo something. Which, again, that happens as part of being on a label, I guess. But long story short, all these little things here and there, the band was frustrated because they felt as though they no longer, if they were to sign this contract, they no longer would have had the freedom to write the way they wanted to. They were writing for the label, not for themselves at that point, which, again, sometimes part of the game. So I can see that. But I also understand from, an artistic integrity kind of thing. They brought in a lawyer to try to negotiate the contract. Sumerian said, nope, take it or leave it, and they left it. So I see this from two perspectives, really. One, what kind of a contract did you expect? The label's trying to make money.
Right.
The label's trying to make money. They're not going to make this a high-risk situation for themselves. They're not going to say, yeah, write whatever you want, we'll pump it out for you. No, they're going to want a lot of control over it.
Right, because it's a business deal. Like, the label is going to, they're going to want to help the band out, but they're also trying to make money for themselves.
Exactly.
So that they can continue to support other bands,
Exactly. And the kid, which kind of drove me nuts, is he drew some. He spent like the first 5-6 minutes, maybe up as many as 10 minutes, describing the situation, and the rest of it was just slamming the label, just talking about how they were just raping them of their artistic freedoms. They were completely questioning them as musicians, so on and so forth. How they were just trying to make them into cash cows for the label and all this stuff, which was kind of just pointless to listen to, but I did anyway.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say what they actually did was they brought an attorney to kind of like I mentioned, and the attorney was like, well, this contract is archaic, the language makes no sense, we can definitely work something out. And then of course they had to pay for the attorney fees, they had to pay for the trip to LA, so they lost out on a lot because of this, mostly financially. So I get the frustrations, I do. And I got a little bit of respect for them, again, mostly because they thought in the sense of artistic integrity, and they just want to write what they want to write. They don't want to necessarily write for somebody else, but at the same time, you have to realize you're probably getting into the wrong game by participating in that kind of a contest,
Yeah. Well, my issue is, number one, like, let's take the numbers. Was it the singer?
Yeah.
I guess in the video?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take the singer's words at face value. Like, let's assume he's being 100% truthful. It's Sumerian that is at fault here and that's being sketchy here.
It's all we have, so I may as well.
Number one, what gets me right off the bat is it was very clear that Sumerian was sort of just this was a jump start. This was like, it's like when you're a kid and you buy one of those like Fender guitar packs that has a guitar, an amp, a cable, picks, all that stuff. It's a starter setup.
Right.
It's not supposed to be the best deal in the world because you're not the best band in the world.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, number two, if you have an issue with it, why is it so hard to just like quietly say no thank you,
right,
and turn your back and let it be? Why this big brouhaha? I just like I don't get it. Like, what does he think he's going to gain from this?
Well, not a ton, to be completely honest with you, because the band's pretty much gone through shit since then, which, again, just bad luck, really. I mean, I'm with you there. It's just a matter of you got to know what you're getting yourself into. You got to know what to expect from these things. And he was talking this whole time. He drew comparisons to Periphery, all these other bands, and he was trying to, like, talk as though he could find a way to construct a contract that was. I'm like, no. This isn't a contract that you work with them to come up with. This is a contract you were handed and saying deal with it.
Right.
That's number one. I mean, that's what this is. If
Sumerian was doing these guys a favor.
Right. They have zero.
And number two,
zero contracts. Of course.
Number two, according, well, at least if we take Ash's words, Ash Ableton, the label head, the other bands that they gave contracts to based on their performance that night.
Yeah.
Have all done okay with it. They've been able to find, they've been able to make this work and blah, 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 blah. Like, why are numbers, who are numbers that they are so much better than these other bands who are making do with what they have,
right.
Dealing with, getting a big promotional boost, getting their album put out on a very well-known metal record label, getting a deal that does not include tour and merchandise cuts.
Right.
Like, it's not a 360 deal.
Right.
Which a lot of record labels are trying to do these days. A lot of record labels are trying to tap into that tour and merch money. Like, what?
I mean,
why? If these other bands were okay with it, why is it not good enough for numbers?
Right.
That's what I want.
No, and it's completely valid. And I more or less say this at this point: it's a contract. Write whatever you want. If they don't like it, they'll make you redo it. And if it goes poorly enough, you'll get dropped. And then you're free to write whatever the fuck you want. But you may as well give it a shot, Who knows? Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. It's all about exposure at that point in the game. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I see what they're saying, but at the same time, I think you gotta at least slide 55% to the Sumerian side a little, in this sense. Yeah, I mean, and you know what? Like, looking at it from numbers perspective, if they... I don't know if it was... I haven't seen the contract. I don't know. If it was the kind of deal where they felt their artistic integrity was going to be compromised, then props to them for not taking it. But there are more tactful ways to turn down a contract than the way this guy did. That's all I'll say on the matter. I think that put the fact that he took to YouTube and went about this all passive aggressively, that just sort of rubbed me the wrong way from the get-go, and I am having trouble siding with him from there on out. No,
basically.
I agree completely. I really do. And again, you got to give a little bit of respect to artistic integrity, but you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. You don't know how they're going to react to whatever you write. It's just that simple. So, I mean, dude, they're giving you a shot. They're giving you a contract. And I mean, you kind of generally know what the label will put out too. I mean, there's a reason bands like Agalloch and so forth are on Profound Lore. It's just it fits their music, and you need to know that a little bit of head going into it anyway. And if you've already written music that caters to them and they've already appreciated your music, you're probably in good shape already. Just saying. Just saying. Anyhow.
Yeah. Well. Good luck, I guess. Numbers. Maybe try and work on your professionalism a little bit, but do your thing, I guess. Want to move on to something that we just noticed yesterday, Tuesday, I guess. That I think is I won't say it's the best thing in the world, but I certainly think it's worth talking about. I want to bring up Saint Anger 2015. Now, this is three guys from the UK, Daryl G and Dave C from a band called Grace the Skies, and their friend Chris D on production. I didn't look into their names any further. I apologize. Now these guys re-recorded Metallica's infamous album Saint Anger with a few tweaks. They gave it some better production. The drums no longer sound like you're hitting a grocery bag. They condensed the album quite a bit. They cut about 15 minutes from the total runtime. And they didn't add guitar solos. They recorded everything live except for some occasional double kick drum patterns that were added in later. And they said about this project, quote, "Absolutely no money has been made from the project, and it has been created out of love for one of our favorite bands of all time. There will be no download links or alternative streaming options aside from our singular YouTube video." So what'd you think of this? Did you get a chance to listen at all?
I worked my way through it. I didn't go, I didn't listen to every second of it, but I kind of skipped from song to song a little bit. Sure. I first of all, and I got shit on the album at least a little bit here. 15 minutes less Saint Anger is better Saint Anger, no matter how you cut or slice it.
Yes.
But I actually
from 74 down to 59, I'll take it.
God, that album was 74 minutes long. Jesus.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
I thought it sounded better. I did. I thought, the title track sounded actually reasonably decent. I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun to just listen to it with a facelift. I mean, it's Saint Anger. I'm not gonna think that highly of it all that much anyway. Right. But it was kind of fun to give it a spin and see what they came up with, and it wasn't terrible.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like trying to polish a toilet. I mean, like you'll be able to clean it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's still a toilet.
The term is turd, Dan.
Shit in it.
The term is turd.
Whatever. I mean, you can polish a turd too, but
no, you can't. That's the whole point.
I'd like to polish something that didn't come out of my own asshole, or I'd like to try to polish something that didn't come out of my own asshole. It was fine. I thought it was cool. Like a lot of, I'm not gonna lie. Like I'd gotten so used to some of these songs having that awful production and that awful snare sound that they almost felt wrong without it.
See, I haven't listened to Sanger that many times to ever have that mentality. So there's that.
Yeah. I see. I would sooner have seen if you're gonna. I mean, if as they say, they wanted to pay tribute and they wanted to show their love for one of their favorite bands of all time. Shit, re-record "And Justice for All" with bass.
Yeah,
Like I know someone did the "And Justice for Jason" on YouTube where they just took the original recording and they added bass to it. Right. But I'm talking about like if you're gonna do a full re-recording of Saint Anger, why not do a full re-recording of "And Justice for All"? Add a little more bite to those guitars. The guitars on "And Justice for All" are so thin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great album, but it doesn't sound all that great. So do that instead. I don't know why Saint Anger. But it was fun. I mean, props to him for trying. Yeah. I thought, it's a cool experiment. Again, check it out. It's YouTube. If you just search for Saint Anger 2015, it should come up pretty easily. So give it a whirl. Now, Corey, I want to move on here. You went to Dark Tranquillity and Insomnium last week, did you not?
I did indeed.
Let's talk about it. How was it?
Okay, I can do that. It was awesome. It was a cold day. I went down after work on a Wednesday, and I guess I'll just work my way through the bands here. I mean, first and foremost, Insomnium, a band I've really grown to appreciate over the last year plus or so, or whatever. And they opened with Primeval Dark, the opening track to Shadows of the Dying Sun, which naturally segued into While We Sleep. And leave it to the fucking Palladium. They fucked it up. So they're playing the intro to Primeval Dark, and it sounds great. It sounds crisp. Everything just sounds wonderful, and the mic isn't fucking plugged in. So when he's supposed to start bellowing those epic, lyrics to that track, that intro track, there's just nothing. It's just nothingness. They don't figure it out till midway through While We Sleep, which sucks. But again, it sounded cool. They played some stuff off, any of the last three albums, really. It was a good set overall. It was a good mix. I mean, they only played for about 35, 40 minutes, maybe a little more than that. But they did sound good overall. Afterwards, I got to meet them, got to shake hands, chat a little bit about Scandinavian things and how shitty the Palladium is, which was a good laugh. So they're cool dudes. But fuck, Dark Tranquillity. I'll move on to them. They were amazing. I mean, these guys were incredible. They played well over an hour, 18 tracks, opened with probably your favorite, Signs of Noise.
Yes.
Which was just so cool. And, they went back in their discography quite a ways over these 18 songs. I mean, songs from Haven, Character, obviously Construct, Damage Done, I think there was one or two. They went all over the map, and it was really, really, really cool.
I saw some stuff from Fiction on there in the set list you sent me.
That was there as well. They rounded off. There were even songs on Construct that I had previously not had much of an appreciation for that I now really, really enjoy. Songs like I'm going to think of none of these right now because go fucking figure. Any of them, take your pick, because I thought Construct was a solid album. But at that point, it's just like Dark Tranquillity. I mean, they've done so much, and they went through a stretch where they did start to get a little same sounding for me. But Construct was it was you referred to it as a nice return to form. I just think it's a solid album through and through. And the song I'm thinking of right now actually is End Time Hearts, which is one of one of their closing songs from the set, and that was just fucking ripped. It was awesome. So overall, great show, great start to 2015. Dark Tranquillity is a band I'm definitely gonna have to see live again. They just put on that good of a show. They were very, very enthusiastic. The crowd was loving them. There were no stage barriers. A little bit of background info. This wasn't at the Palladium, like the main floor Palladium, where we've seen Devin Townsend and stuff. This was actually upstairs at the Palladium, where it's a smaller venue, smaller stage. There's a small balcony, which is where I was. There's no barriers between the crowd and the stage. So the fans would just crowd surf onto the stage and just hang out on the stage for a few seconds, then jump back in the crowd and head back. And the band was loving it. So it was great.
Nice.
Great atmosphere, a lot of fun. It's a band that's going to be in the studio soon, from what I've understood. So I'll be hoping they come back around soon enough. It was definitely a hell of a way to kick off 2015 concerts.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I really wanted to catch them when they came through here, but as I think I mentioned last week, I was tied up with another show. I went to see Forn and Serpentine Path and Vilcakis over at Vitus the same night they came through.
Right.
Awful timing, but it is what it is.
Shows.
I don't think Dark Tranquillity is going to stop touring anytime soon. So
nope.
I'll.
They do that frequently.
I'll have a chance to check these guys out, I think.
Yeah.
But cool. Sounds like fun. I had another show last week as well that I want to talk about, but it's not metal per se. I went to see a group called Future Islands at Terminal 5. I went to they're kind of an indie band, very fun, very danceable, very pop. But then every once in a while, the singer, Samuel T. Herring, occasionally busts out these death growls during live songs. No big deal.
Of course he does.
And it was really funny just sitting there. I mean, because these songs are like super catchy, super fun. And you get the crowd was what you'd expect. It's like people that like pop music. It's not a big deal. But like seeing people's faces when he did bust out the death growls was just like... They're like, what's he doing?
What's happening?
Yeah. It was a ton of fun either way. I really, really enjoyed their set. I'm going to probably be seeing them again at Governor's Ball. They're playing that. And I just got my tickets for that last week. So long, $300. So it's going to be fun. I had a good time, and Future Islands. That was a thing that happened.
Sweet.
Now, let's get into some new releases. Now, we have been doing, as you may have seen on the blog, we've been doing reviews. We've had one up every day this week. We're only going to talk about two of the four that we've done so far on the podcast, at least. But now, Corey, I want to start off with you.
Sure.
You gave a listen to The Crown and their new album, Death Is Not Dead. What'd you think of this one?
I actually really liked it. I'm not going to say that it wowed me to some ridiculous level as I was last year by some of the January releases that came through, but it was a solid album. The Crown, of course.
Yeah, not every January is going to give us Behemoth.
I wasn't going to say it. But The Crown
we were all thinking it.
Yeah, I know. Crown, they made their foothold back in the mid-90s, just like all the other Swedish death metalers out there. They had more of like a groovy thrash feel to them. In their heyday, they did disband in 2004. Lead singer took off for some other projects. They eventually came back in 2010 with Jonas Stahlhammer, a different vocalist or whatever, and put out a rather less than memorable album called Doomsday King. I mean, it was really straightforward. It really didn't test any new waters. It didn't really do anything. It just stuck with its groovy, thrashy feel, which again is fine, but it makes an album sound eventually very same sounding. They came back this year with Death Is Not Dead, and I gotta say, everything that album, or everything that would have made that album better, was on this one. It's got a nice little melodic flair throughout. Some really, really nice signature riffage, especially on the opening tracks. There's a really cool cover of Eternal, a Paradise Lost cover, which works really well, and it really, I think, does help give you an idea of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to cover with this album. really nice solos. Borderline wanky, but that's okay. And the thing is, what's kind of cool about this album is as you work through it, it gets to a certain point, probably about either a third or halfway through it, where the songs just start to kind of take on a more aggressive and harsher feel, and they just sort of build on each other for 3 or 4 tracks, which is really, really, really cool. I mean, there are definitely some awkward moments. I think of Speed Kills, Full Moon Ahead, which it's kind of an awkward song. It really is. It's got a lot of chugging riffage, which doesn't work for the rest of the album. There's a drum intro, which just seems kind of like it's there because they needed something there. It just doesn't seem that well put together. I mean, it has a nice chorus, but that only means so much. From there, the more aggressive songs tend to improve as we move through the track list, and then it all kind of comes full circle and climaxes with Ride to Ruin, which I think is, it's a nice track. It's an impressive, it's a powerful track. The finale, it's really a 2-part finale on this album. I mean, we start with Meduseld, which has a really, really nice acoustic guitar intro. And kind of like remember how last year when we listened to Lord Mantis, they gave us those nice little moments where it was just kind of like a bit of a respite from just the intensity of the album. This was kind of like that. You get through these 4 or 5 really intense songs, these really punchy, punch in the gut tracks, and then you get this instrumental, which just kind of rounds things off nicely, eases things off a bit. I mean, it does build throughout the track. It does increase in weight as you move through it, but it's nice. It's a nice little break, and then it closes with, I think, what is one of the more straightforward tracks on the album, that being God Eater, which I think it's fine. I just don't think it's in the right place on the album, to be completely honest with you. I think it could have been earlier in the record or something. But no, overall, I thought it was a good album. I think it was, it's definitely upper middle pack. I think Johan Lidstrand's return to the band as, again, the original frontman's back. It's definitely proven beneficial. It gave me a lot that I would have liked to have seen 5 years ago. So it looks like it's a step in the right direction. So, I mean, there's reason for optimism going forward. So I thought overall it was solid. No real complaints.
Well, that's good. I was not as into it as you were. Yeah. I didn't think it was bad, but I found myself getting a little bored at times. It definitely had its moments. In addition to the songs you mentioned, I liked Headhunter. I really liked that kind of chugging start-stop riff it opens with. I thought that was really cool. And definitely with you. What's up?
What's funny is, like, when that track first came out as a single, I didn't really care for it at all. But it's proven to be kind of a grower on me. Now I kind of like it. It's pretty cool. But touch on that real quick.
Sure. And I'm also with you on the last 2 songs, Meduseld and God Eater. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like overall, it just seems like an album that would have hit me harder in the mid 90s. You know what I mean? Like if this had come out around the time of The Gallery or around the time of Slaughter of the Soul, like it feels very beholden to those influences, right. Which isn't bad, but I'm just like, oh, okay. Like I've heard this before, it's just, I sort of found myself lolling away in the middle there, but definitely had its moments. I didn't think it was bad. The Crown, Death Is Not Dead. It's out now on, I believe, Century Media. So give it a listen. Now I am going to talk about Sylosis and their 4th album, Dormant Heart, which came out earlier this week on Nuclear Blast. Did you get a chance to listen to this one at all, or?
Yeah, I worked my way through it a little bit. Dude, it's long. Or at least it felt long.
Yeah. It's
at over an hour, but I actually kind of liked it. I'll let you talk about it in full, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Sure, yeah. So I right from the get-go, what I liked about this one is that there's a real kind of sense of urgency to it. Not necessarily in the pacing, but in the tempo of the songs rather, but it kind of feels like the soundtrack to like the pickup of an action or sci-fi movie. There's like sort of I think I wrote a review about it earlier this week on the blog, and I said it sort of feels like mission critical in a like a spy movie or a military movie or something. It's just like very, very vehement in its tone.
Yeah.
And kept up throughout. They bring a nice set of influences into play. There are parts that are very mellow death. There are parts that are more tech death. There's a thrashy side to it. But there's also a nice little bit of, catchiness to it. The band has had some metalcore-ish tendencies in the past, but nothing here is like that level of sappy that you would get in metalcore. It's nothing to really take away from this thing's punch. My problem is that, all these influences they're bringing in, it doesn't really end up sounding like any one thing. It doesn't feel like they have a real direction. It just kind of like it ends up feeling like they're just aping Soilwork here, which isn't bad, but these guys clearly have the potential for more than this. So just seeing them, deliver an album that's like, oh, Soilwork. It's a little disappointing, but overall, I mean, there were some good stuff here. I loved the lead track, Mercy. The title track was fantastic. I mean, there definitely has its moments, but am I going to be remembering this one when it comes time to do my year-end list? No, I'm gonna tell you right now. No.
I think that can be said for pretty much both these albums. But no, I pretty much agree with that assessment. I mean, they did some stuff I thought was pretty cool. I don't know, there were parts that didn't necessarily seem the most cohesive, and maybe some areas where it seemed like they were almost trying to fit a sound that just didn't really work with the rest of the album. I don't know. I saw, like you said, there are a lot of influences. You could pick them out from start to finish on this thing, and just together, I don't know. It seems like it was fine. I enjoyed the listen overall, but it didn't. A little bit of work, a little bit of work here and there.
Well, it feels like when you're playing guitar and you add some distortion, and then you add some reverb, and then you add some delay, and then you add some chorus, and you add like effects pedals, you add stomp boxes, and it just ends up sounding like a giant mess. And I don't think this one is a giant mess per se, but it doesn't really. They've lost the ability to articulate any single one of their influences by bringing them all into play. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's, honestly, to be completely fair, that's actually one of the reasons why I like the Crown album so much, because I feel like they did articulate what they want to do well. Yes, it is mid-90s. It's very mid-90s. It's very Swedish death metal or whatever you want to call it, but they articulated that nicely.
They absolutely did. Yeah. I just am kind of tired of hearing what they
because we've been had At the Gates bombard us with pretty much the same sound from seeing that MDF to their new record, and it's just like, okay, there's been a lot of this stuff lately, so I definitely get that, no question.
Anyway, check out Dormant Heart. It's the fourth album from Sylosis. It's out now on Nuclear Blast. It is on Spotify. Give it a listen. See what you think. Want to remind you guys again that on the Horns Up blog, hornsupmetalshow.com, we are going to be doing more reviews, and in fact, we have a couple more up from our brand new blogger. Shout out to Mania War. I don't know if I should give his name out. I don't think he cares either way, but he's going by Mania War on the site. So check him out. He's going to be doing reviews. He's going to be doing some lists for us coming up. Just sort of a jack of all trades. He's a good writer. So at Mania War, check him out. It's good stuff.
Why don't we have nicknames? Oh, right. Because we'll never self-appoint nicknames.
Frankly, I'm sure he's okay with just calling himself by his real name. I don't know if he needs a self-appointed nickname, but he's appointed it for his Twitter handle and for he runs he works on another site called Ritual Grim, which is kind of cool. It's like a satirical, like funny look at the metal community. So I think that's probably where it picked up. But yeah, shout out to Mania War. Give his stuff a read. It's gonna be fun. I'm glad to have him on board.
More content.
But moving on. Yes. More domination. Moving on, though, we're going to move into our final segment. Let's do Horns Up, Horns Down. Let's start with Horns Up. Corey, what's making you happy this week?
Oh, well, it's going to get all sappy-feely here for a second. Dan, it's you. You're sticking to your New Year's resolutions. You're buying CDs.
I am.
And I discovered this on Facebook this weekend. And, obviously, I've talked about this many, many times, bragging about my trips to Bull Moose and the acquisitions I've, made over the last year, although I've made some questionable ones in the past week. We'll get into that in a second. But I finally, after like a week and a half, went back and read your New Year's Eve, whatever you want to call them, New Year's resolutions. And one of the first ones was buy more music. And I'm like, yeah, definitely do that. And then you did immediately. A+, sir.
Well, I want to clarify. I don't want to give myself too much credit here. I have bought a CD. I bought one at a show.
Steps in the
the
right
other
direction.
stuff I've been buying. The other stuff I've been buying has been MP3s.
Yeah.
But I've been buying MP3s directly from the bands. I've been getting stuff from their Bandcamp pages. It's going to them. It's not like funneled through Amazon and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I feel good about it.
Damn right. So
Step in the right direction.
go out and buy music, people, because let's face it, we leech a lot of enjoyed time off these guys, and it's good to just give back, and not just ways that are going to shows once every few weeks.
Right. Well, and the thing I got at in the post when I wrote that was, I could stream an album to high heaven and then, say, oh, I'll go support the band live,
Right.
when they come through. But me doing that, like, let's say like that's one show, one night a year. I will have dropped maybe one, like, let's say on average, the shows I go to cost like maybe $20, $25. One $25 ticket, maybe one $10 to $15 item on the merch stand. That's $40 for one night. Then, for them, they're going off to other cities and they're playing to other people. But here I am, if I go and then continue to stream their songs on Spotify, I'm getting a year's worth of enjoyment. Meanwhile, they'll only have had one night's worth of income from me.
Right.
And I realize that me buying their album does not continuously give them $7, $8, $9 every time I listen to the album, but it makes me feel better for, the continuous enjoyment that I, get from them, that I'll have compensated them for it.
Sure.
Even if it's only once, like I will have, anteed up.
Right, and I think you've alluded to this before too. I mean, you made a point about this before too. You definitely tend to try to envelop yourself more into an album when you actually own it. When you invest the money in listening to it, you devote more time to it, and that's part of why I do it as well. I say that being a complete hypocrite because I bought the new Young and in the Way album this past week, and for God knows what reason. That's going to be one that'll bust out in very, very, very rainy days. It's not that bad. It's kind of fun to listen to, really. But yeah, no, that's kind of why I do it, is because, generally if an album catches my eye, I will have an interest in kind of immersing myself a bit more in it, and that's why I go out and invest the money, because then you do feel a bit more into it, and you get more into it when you listen to it, and you pull more out of it. So it's all good stuff.
Well, when you can just so easily jump from one thing to the next, to this to that on Spotify, it's like you don't take any of it in,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or you do, but it takes you longer to take it in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep trying to do that anyway.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was able to provide happiness for you this week. I'm glad I was able to be your horns up.
It's been a really shitty week.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh man.
Well, I am with you on that, and so my horns up is the fact that it's a long weekend coming up, because it's Martin Luther King weekend. So yeah, I nothing terribly profound to say about it. I may go see a couple movies. Maybe even one of them will be Selma, because Martin Luther King weekend. And also because, good movie apparently. But yeah, I need this 3-day weekend. This has been another week of not much sleep. So I am going to relish the ability to laze around and do nothing.
I hear you there.
But yeah. But at least I don't have any shows to contend with this week. That was really, I mean, I think I told you last week I averaged something like 5 hours of sleep a night. Yeah. So it wasn't great. Wasn't great.
Not optimal.
Yeah. But oh well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
These are the lives we live. Moving on into horns down though. What do you got on the other end? What's upsetting you this week?
It's upsetting, but to a certain degree. We've all heard.
Well, I phrased it this way specifically because I know you told me about this, and I was like, it doesn't really piss you off.
No, it's more
certainly upsetting.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's. Most of most of our listeners, hopefully have heard I'm not going to tell it again because there's a dead horse over there that I just keep hitting with a baseball bat. I had an incident a couple Halloweens ago. It was Halloween 2013, where I happened to just eat shit onto a pile of glass and my face got busted up in a bar.
I was
Yeah,
there.
Dan was there dressed as Papa Emeritus, which was wonderful. I was dressed as Nurgle, which was also wonderful, especially covered in blood. But we were at a bar that I frequent at least twice a week. The Coat of Arms downtown Portsmouth, and the doorman, Mark, who I consider a good local friend of mine. We've always chatted every time I've gone in or whatever. He happened to be there the night this incident happened. He put me back together, pat me on the head, and sent me off to the hospital. We've had a lot of stories. We've had a lot of run-ins. We've had a lot of jokes between us. He has announced today officially through the interwebs that he will be leaving the Coat of Arms in 2 weeks and taking off to be one of the directors at the Rep, which is a small theater in downtown Portsmouth, which is awesome. It's an awesome move. I'm psyched for him. It's a really cool gig. It's gonna be great, but unfortunately, my drunk ass is gonna miss running into him twice a weekend. When I go to the Coat of Arms at 12:30 at night, because they're the only place will give me booze that late. By booze that late, I mean I'll go there for like an hour and not leave when last call comes. So I'm gonna miss that. It's the end of an era. It's definitely the end of one of my weekend routines in this town, which is a bummer. But the good news about this is I'm sure he's still going to be around. The place has been a second home for so long, and instead of bringing me a pint, he'll probably be drinking one next to me, which is even better. But all the same, got to usher out one era and usher in a new one. So farewell, Mark. It's been real, and you put my face back together. So there's always that.
I gotta take a second. I'm gonna get my tissues out here.
He put my face back together. I wish I wasn't being so literal about that.
That's the kind of bond that's not easily broken. Well, I'm sure he's still gonna be local.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you'll find ways to keep in touch and everything. And we're gonna do a Coats run coming up. When I come up for Behemoth and Cannibal Corpse, I'm gonna do some Coats.
Yeah, I agree. We'll figure that out when the time comes. But yeah, I say that, but it's only a month and a half away. I'm excited.
I gotta get my bus tickets. I still haven't done that yet. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. We'll have that, and then less than a month later, you'll be coming down here for Enslaved and Young.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's gonna be good. My horns down this week is something I guess let's say a little more far-reaching. But I'm going to talk about. So there was news this week out of Congress, which I really shouldn't be talking about because it'll just devolve into me hating politics in general. One Ted Cruz, y'all know how I feel about Ted Cruz by now. Senator from Texas, was named chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Space, Science, and Competitiveness. Ted Cruz, the guy who is a climate change denier, the guy who, just is as far right and stupidly far right as you can get, is now going to be responsible for space and science and competitiveness. This is kind of like me if I took over the Senate and I were to name you the chair of a subcommittee on pop, hip hop, and R&B. I look at this. I'm not going to say anything more because on this news itself, because if I do, it'll devolve and I'll probably end up saying something very regrettable about Ted Cruz, and I don't want to do that right now. But I will say, I look at news like this. The more I see stuff like this happening, I realize we are just inching ever closer to becoming a real life version of Idiocracy. Mike Judge, you're a goddamn Nostradamus, you are. We are going, America is becoming Idiocracy.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. I'm sorry. When shit like this, when an anti-intellectual, backward thinking dude like this is in charge of our space and science research and NASA, no, I'm sorry. We're fucked.
No,
we're totally
we
fucked.
are fucked. All that progress we've made over the last God knows how many decades, just in knowledge and exploration and everything. You may as well just take a giant shit on all of it. I'm gonna speak a little openly here, and I've been laughing because the references have been fantastic for this one particular horns down. But no, this is awful. This is a step in the wrong direction, a huge step. This is a leap. I'll stick with leap for lack of a better term. This is a leap in the wrong direction. It's a
leap, but it's like a John Carter-esque leap. Right. It's like one of those gravity-defying leaps.
Right, exactly.
In the wrong direction.
Exactly. I'm going to try super hard to find a way to articulate my thoughts using words that are not regrettable, as you said. And I'm probably going to give up within about 3 seconds. But this guy, yeah, I quit. I got nothing. This is pathetic. This is fucking stupid. This country's utterly screwed. It really is. We just keep putting the wrong people in the wrong positions to make poor decisions, and we're just moving backwards at this point. And I'm completely convinced of that.
America. Yeah. Well, anyway, that will about wrap us up for episode 35. It's been a good one, I think. It's
been fun.
Reminder for all you guys, check out the Horns Up blog for more content. Again, reviews, but also our retrospectives, our TBTs, you name it. It's all up there. www.hornsupmetalshow.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We are facebook.com/hornsuppodcast, twitter.com. Not twitter.com, facebook.com/hornsuppodcast, Twitter @hornsuppodcast. Also Instagram. I forgot we have one of those now.
Yeah.
Instagram, we are @hornsuppodcast as well.
Even I do stuff there.
Yeah, exactly. Subscribe to the Horns Up podcast on iTunes, subscribe on Stitcher, on Podbean, follow us, tell your friends to do the same. We certainly appreciate your listenership. And yeah, this has been episode 35. Thank you guys as always for stopping by, and remember, live,
Love,
plow.
horns up.
We'll see you next week.